Good day and welcome back to another DB Legends video. In this video we are going to be taking a look at the Fierce Fight for Android 13 that has come out with the 5th anniversary or the 5-year anniversary in DB Legends. Now Fierce Fights are pretty straightforward events. You will have 3 stages that you will need to complete, and then you will be able to unlock 3 additional stages, one being the daily bonus stage, one being the equipment stage, and the final one being a challenge stage. Now I don't cover the challenge stages in this video, I cover them in separate videos, so if you're looking for those you'll have to wait for them to come out later on. But for now I'll cover everything else you need to know about the Android 13 Fierce Fight so that you can complete it and maximize your rewards and get as basically much Z power as you possibly can for Android 13. Now most of the Z power will come from completing the stages and the missions associated with the event and completing the daily bonus stage. However, there will be a future event which will likely be a full power battle and hyperdimensional co-op, allowing you to farm additional Z power for the unit, and you can kind of see that mentioned here under where to get Z power. Now of course that's not the only thing, but it is just to mention that the Z power is a priority. There is a nice equipment as well that you can place on him. However, you can only use this equipment when he's at limit break 2 stars, or otherwise known as 2 red stars, or 9 stars in total. In terms of the missions for the stage, the majority of them are pretty straightforward, requiring you to train, level up, raise the friendship, and complete the challenges of the associated Fierce Fight event, so that you can obviously get yourself a lot of the rewards. In terms of everything else, I think, personally speaking, these are pretty straightforward. A question I get asked a lot is how to complete the challenges. The challenges include raising his friendship as challenges. So even if you completed all the stages and all the challenges, you still need to raise his friendship, so just a heads up on that. In terms of the exchange shop, there's the equipment, but there's also some valuable resources such as slot removers, skip tickets, Zenny, and energy that players can get and will help them with the anniversary and just in general. Beyond that, basically covers everything you need to know. You'll need to complete the first 3 stages. You do not need to use the specific Android 13 that you get from the event, and instead you can just use any unit that has Android 13 in the name. So you don't need to use specifically the Fierce Fight Android 13. You can actually use the Fierce Fight or any Android 13 in general. Extreme, Sparking, like I think in general. So I think it's pretty good. In terms of the challenges themselves, they are fairly straightforward. The only thing you need to do is you will need to complete some challenges such as vanish stepping a couple attacks, dodging a couple attacks, cover changing, switching, hitting the opposition with special moves from Android 13, and using his special skill as well. Beyond that, that's not too much. It usually requires you to just do one action. You will have to consistently only use 2 units to complete the stage, and you will also not have to use the Rising Rush to complete the stage. All of this though is fairly straightforward, and honestly it's not that big a problem. One unit I would suggest you use here is I would suggest, personally for me, that you use the Fierce Fight Broly. I think that is something that ideally is pretty straightforward. In terms of units to use, you can also use the Metal Cooler as well, the Fierce Fight one, or just whichever blue unit you want to. I think it's always good to have a backup blue unit because you're going to be facing red units the entire event through, so having a good backup one to switch into, especially when you're still getting the Z power or raising the power level of the Android 13, is just a pretty good call strategically. Beyond that, you shouldn't really openly struggle with anything, but you never know. But I do think in general it's just a pretty straightforward process. Beyond that, honestly, In terms of these first 3 stages, not too much needs to be said. You'll be more than fine and you shouldn't really have any issues. Of course, the main goal in terms of Fierce Fight is to max out the units, so we will be taking a look at the daily bonus stage and the equipment stage so that we can complete those, and the challenge stage will be covered in a separate video. I'll be skipping ahead to the point where I've completed all 3 of the starting stages, as well as trained Android 13, soul boosted him, and basically just got him ready to go for the next section. So the next stages you'll need to take on are 2, the daily bonus stage, which will give you Z power daily, as well as quite a sizable amount of equipment rewards or coin rewards, and the other stage being the equipment stage. Now you can also collect your missions for training Android 13 and soul boosting him, and you can use these to exchange for the gear if you want, but like I said, you can't use the gear until he's limit break 2. So realistically speaking, there's no big priority to soul boost him. There's no real big reason to work really hard or to try and prioritize getting his equipment until you have him at that limit break level. Now beyond that, I think that kind of covers everything you need to know about that whole premise. So let's talk a little bit about Android 13. Android 13 is a interesting looking unit. He is basically designed to face units that are healthy or have above 50% health. He increases ally damage and applies debuffs to the enemy, and also he will have additional effects that can activate when he's switched to standby. So he does a lot, and he's more a unit to switch out or have placed on the bench than he is a unit to primarily fight. He's like the kind of unit that you'll just throw in, let him do his business, and then kind of throw him out, if need be. I think at the end of the day, Android 13 looks pretty interesting. It's difficult to say how good a unit can be at 3 stars, especially when they don't have their full Z boost. They don't have all of their full capacities. But yes, it can definitely be something that's a little bit difficult to measure. But it does look like Android 13 could be incredibly solid overall. He could definitely be a unit that's, I want to say, reliable, strong, and has a place. Legends has a weird philosophy when it comes to free-to-play units. Very often they can be, either very, very good or they can be very bad. An example is Pui Pui, who's just an exceptional unit, and Fierce Fight Broly, who I'm using in this video. And then you get Cell or Super 17, where they're just not necessarily super duper strong. And I think that is a little bit of a limitation, at least for me. So it's interesting to always see where units end up being aligned. Of course, at the end of the day, I think the free-to-play units are more to fill gaps and be bench options than anything else. But I do hope that either of these units will be a very nice surprise, so that we can obviously get a good look at, basically some really solid Fierce Fight units and have some really good assistance on that process. Beyond that, I don't really think there's anything too major, at least, in terms of understanding here. And I think if you are someone who's interested in collecting Fierce Fights, you'll always collect the units anyway. He does have an additional benefit, at least during the course of the, anniversary, in that he provides additional boost to raid medal drops, which obviously is something that is at least moderately helpful. Although, of course, it is difficult to kind of surmise how helpful. that will be, especially without the ability to push their Z power relatively high up. But that's basically going to be it from me. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, we'll obviously take a look at the challenge battles in a separate one. We will also be taking a look at obviously just trying to push the units as much as possible. We'll review them when we can get them a bit higher up in their Z awakening power. And of course, we will take a look at pretty much everything else that's been released with today in Legends. To raise his friendship, you can do the Let's Fight event, the new story event, or the temporary story event, or you can do the friendship awakening mission as well. But that's going to be it from me. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. See you next time. Bye.